In the crushing darkness beneath the world's oceans, in corridors of cold salt water where sunlight has never reached and silence is so complete, you can hear your own heartbeat amplifying against steel walls. The most dangerous and least understood war in human history was quietly, invisibly fought, not with armies on open fields or bombers crossing visible skies, but with submarines, secrets, and the unbearable weight of decisions made by ordinary men in extraordinary darkness. Men who left their families at harbor without being able to say where they were going or how long they would be gone or whether they would come back at all. Men who descended into the abyss carrying enough nuclear warheads to erase entire nations from the map. Men who lived for weeks and months in spaces no larger than a city bus, breathing recycled air, eating canned food under fluorescent light, listening, always listening to the ocean around them for the sound of something hunting them in return. And to understand why any of this mattered, why these silent men in these invisible machines became the most strategically important military force in human history, you have to understand the world they were born into, a world split in two by the wreckage of one war and the paranoia of the next, a world where the United States and the Soviet Union each held enough nuclear weapons to end civilization several times over, a world governed by a doctrine so coldly logical it bordered on insane. The idea that if both sides knew an attack guaranteed their own annihilation, neither side would ever attack, a balance called mutually assured destruction, mad, a word that fit perfectly. And into that balance came the submarine, the one weapons platform that could never be reliably found, never be preemptively destroyed, never be neutralized in a first strike, always lurking somewhere beneath the surface, always ready, always waiting, a loaded gun resting permanently at the temple of the world. And the Americans understood this first launching USS Nautilus in 1954, the world's first nuclear powered submarine, a vessel that could run for months without surfacing, quieter and faster and deeper than anything that had come before it. And the Soviets watched and they built their own. And the arms race that followed happened entirely out of sight, beneath oceans that kept every secret perfectly. And in those depths, the Americans began doing things that, if discovered, would have had no diplomatic explanation. Submarines threading through Soviet territorial waters in complete radio silence, operators in darkened sonar rooms pressing headphones to their ears and learning to identify individual Soviet submarines by the unique acoustic fingerprint of their propellers and their reactors and the particular groan of their hulls at pressure. A library of sounds that became priceless intelligence, but listening was never enough. And in 1968, the United States launched one of the most audacious covert operations in the history of espionage, sending a specially modified submarine called USS Halibut deep into the Sea of Okhotsk, into Soviet Pacific waters, where it deployed divers from a pressurized chamber in its belly, divers who swam in near freezing darkness to the floor of the ocean, and attached a recording device to a Soviet military communications cable, a cable the Soviets believed was completely secure because the idea that anyone could reach it 3 miles down in hostile waters was, to them, simply unthinkable. And for over a decade, that device recorded Soviet Pacific Fleet communications, their submarine movements, their missile tests, their command decisions, all of it flowing silently into American intelligence files until a disgruntled NSA analyst sold the secret to the KGB for $35,000, and the Soviets quietly retrieved the device and changed their protocols and said nothing publicly, because admitting the breach would mean admitting how completely they had been penetrated, and the intelligence war in the deep ocean went on relentless and invisible. But it was not only intelligence that was being gathered in those depths, it was deterrence itself being tested moment by moment in real time. And the most terrifying test of all came in October of 1962, when the world above the waterline was already shaking with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy and Khrushchev in a diplomatic standoff over Soviet missiles 90 miles from American soil, and beneath the Caribbean Sea, 4 Soviet submarines were running silent, each carrying a nuclear-tipped torpedo with a warhead equivalent to the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. And the Soviet captains had been given authority, in certain circumstances, to use those weapons. And one of those, Submarine,